My daughter deserves the window seat on a completely empty bus. I take the bus to work every day, and most of the time it's pretty empty, especially in the middle of the day. Today was one of those days. I'm about maybe 5 people on the whole bus spread out. I like to sit near the back so I can people watch and have a bit more space around me. I was sitting in a window seat just scrolling on my phone when a woman and her daughter got on. The daughter, who looked to be about 6 or 7, immediately pointed at my window seat and started saying, Mommy, I want that seat. I want to see outside. The mother, without even a glance in my direction, said in a loud voice, Okay, honey, we'll take that seat. She then walked right up to me and stood there, just staring. I looked up a bit confused and she just pointed at the empty aisle seat next to me and said, You can move there, my daughter wants the window seat. Now, I need to reiterate, the bus was practically empty. There were literally dozens of other window seats available, many closer to the front and presumably better for viewing. But no, she decided she wanted my window seat. I politely said, Ma'am, there are plenty of other window seats available. The bus is empty. I gestured around to the vast expanse of unoccupied seats. She scoffed and rolled her eyes. Yes, but my daughter deserves the window seat. She always gets the window seat. It's not fair if she doesn't get the window seat. She said this with a tone that implied I was personally depriving her child of some fundamental human right by occupying a seat on a public bus. I was honestly dumbfounded. Deserves, I repeated, trying to keep the incredulity out of my voice. And then, ma'am, with all due respect, it's a bus, and there are again many other window seats. I was here first. I really didn't think I was being unreasonable. She then escalated, huffing loudly and saying, Are you seriously gonna make a little girl cry? Just move, it's not that hard, you're being so selfish. Her daughter was now starting to whine a little, probably picking up on her mother's dramatic performance. Other passengers were starting to look over, probably wondering what the commotion was. At this point, I was just tired and didn't want to deal with a public scene. I sighed, gathered my things, and stood up. As I moved to the aisle seat, she smirked triumphantly and said, Thank you, see? That wasn't so difficult, was it? Her daughter immediately clambered into the window seat, completely oblivious to the ridiculous drama her mother had just caused over a seat on an empty bus. I just shook my head and put my headphones in, resolving to choose a different seat further back next time, just to avoid any potential future window seat entitlement encounters. Seriously? An empty bus and she pulls the deserves card? Some folks just want to make a scene, don't they? Hit that subscribe button if you're tired of entitled parents, because we are. Entitled cyclist demands I pay for his bike repair after he crashes into my parked car. This happened a few weeks ago, and I'm still baffled by the sheer audacity of this guy. I live in a relatively busy city, so parking can be a bit of a nightmare. I finally managed to snag a street parking spot right outside my apartment building after circling for ages. It was a legal spot, plenty of space, and I parked perfectly within the lines. Went upstairs, grabbed my groceries, and came back down to unload. As I was opening my trunk, I heard a loud crash and a yell. I turned around to see a cyclist sprawled out on the pavement next to my car, and his bike was tangled under the front wheel. My heart sank, thinking I'd somehow reversed into him without noticing, even though I was parked and hadn't moved. I rushed over, concerned, asking if he was okay. He was groaning and rubbing his leg, and his bike looked pretty mangled. I genuinely felt bad, assuming it was my fault somehow. Oh my God, are you alright? I am so sorry, I didn't see you. Kate, I said, full of apologies. He glared at me, still on the ground, and snapped, Of course I'm not alright. You just pulled out in front of me. Look at my bike, you completely wrecked it. I was confused. Pulled out? But I was parked. I just got here. You crashed into my parked car. I pointed to my car, which was indeed stationary, and parked neatly. He finally sat up and looked around, seemingly realizing that my car hadn't moved. He then had the audacity to say, Well, you shouldn't have parked there. You were blocking the bike lane. It's your fault I crashed. I stared at him, speechless for a moment. Bike lane? Sir, this is a street parking spot. There is no bike lane here. You crashed into a parked car. I pointed to the street markings, clearly indicating parking spaces, not a bike lane. He started getting agitated and louder. Don't you try to blame me. You're in the way. Now my bike is broken and it's gonna cost a fortune to fix. You're going to pay for this. Dude, he actually expected me to pay for his bike repair because he crashed into my parked car. I calmly explained again that I was legally parked There was no bike lane, and he was the one who crashed. I even offered to call the police to file a report, thinking that would make him realize how ridiculous he was being. Instead, he got even angrier. Police? Don't you threaten me with the police. I'm gonna sue you. You're going to pay for my bike and my medical bills. He had a small scrape on his knee. At this point, another person walking by stopped to see what was going on. I explained the situation to them, and they immediately sided with me, telling the cyclist he was clearly at fault for not paying attention and crashing. Embarrassed by the growing audience and the lack of support, the cyclist finally huffed, picked up his mangled bike, and stormed off, still muttering about how it was all my fault and I'd be hearing from his lawyer. Spoiler alert, I haven't. I still can't believe someone could be so entitled as to demand someone else pay for their mistake, especially when they were clearly the one in the wrong. Neighbor demands I stop using my own AC because it's too loud for her. I live in an apartment building, and summer here gets brutally hot and humid, like melt into a puddle on the sidewalk hot. So naturally, I have an AC unit in my apartment. It's a standard window unit, nothing industrial or excessively loud. It's just enough to keep my place comfortable during the heat waves. I've lived here for 2 years and never had any complaints about it until this summer. A new neighbor, let's call her Agnes, moved in next door a couple of months ago. She seemed nice enough at first, if a bit intense. Well, intense quickly morphed into entitled and then completely unreasonable. It started subtly. A few weeks ago, she knocked on my door one evening while my AC was running. I opened it and she immediately grimaced and said, "Do you have to have that thing on so loud? It's really quite disruptive." And I was a bit taken aback. It's my AC. It's hot. It's not that loud. It's just a normal window unit. She waved her hand dismissively. "Well, it's bothering me. I like to sleep with my windows open and it's making it impossible. Could you maybe turn it off at night?" I was already starting to get annoyed. "It's summer, Agnes. It's 80 degrees at night. I'm not turning off my AC so you can sleep with your windows open." I tried to be polite, but I was also firm. She huffed and said, "Well, couldn't you at least turn it down? Or maybe get a quieter one? It's really inconsiderate." I pointed out that it was a standard unit, and I needed it to sleep comfortably too. She just kept insisting it was too loud and bothering her. I eventually closed the door, ending the conversation. I thought that was the end of it, but I was wrong. A few days later, I got a passive-aggressive note slipped under my door, complaining about the constant, unbearable noise from my AC and how it was affecting her quality of life. I ignored it. Then this week, things escalated further. I came home from work to find a note taped to my AC unit itself. It was from Agnes, again demanding I stop using my AC entirely during reasonable hours, which she defined as 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. It claimed the noise was excessive and disruptive, and that she had a right to peace and quiet in her own apartment. This time, I was furious. I marched over to her apartment and knocked on her door. When she opened it, I held up the note and said, "Agnes, are you serious? You're demanding I not use my AC in the summer because you find it too loud? It's a normal AC unit. It's not violating any noise ordinances. I have a right to be comfortable in my own apartment, just as much as you do." She doubled down, saying, "Well, it is really loud and I have sensitive hearing. You need to be more considerate of your neighbors. Maybe you should get a quieter AC or just not use it so much." Danda. She actually suggested I just suffer in the heat so she could have peace and quiet. I told her very clearly that I would not be turning off my AC, especially during the summer. I suggested she get earplugs or close her own windows if the noise was so unbearable. I also pointed out that apartment living sometimes means hearing normal apartment noises like AC units. She just glared at me and slammed the door in my face. I'm half expecting her to complain to the building management next, but honestly, I'm not backing down. I'm not going to suffer in the heat because my neighbor is entitled enough to think her peace and quiet trumps my basic comfort. A C too loud? Seriously? Some neighbors are unbelievable. What's the most ridiculous neighbor complaint you've ever heard? Share in the comments. You're a nurse, right? You can just look at this rash for me real quick at a BBQ off duty. I'm a registered nurse and I love my job most of the time. It's rewarding to help people and I'm good at what I do. However, like anyone in the medical field, I have boundaries, especially when I'm off duty, and nothing grinds my gears more than people assuming they can just get free medical advice whenever and wherever just because of my profession. This past weekend, my husband and I went to a BBQ at a friend's house. It was a casual get-together, good food, good company, a nice relaxing afternoon. Or so I thought. We were chatting with a group of people I didn't know very well, mostly friends of friends. The conversation was light and friendly until one woman, let's call her Brenda, found out I was a nurse. Brenda's eyes lit up. "Oh, you're a nurse. Perfect. Cut," she exclaimed a little too enthusiastically. I immediately felt a sense of dread wash over me. I knew where this was going. Before I could even brace myself, she grabbed my arm and said, "You know, I've been having this rash lately, and I'm not sure what it is. Can you just take a quick look? Maybe you'll know right away." I politely tried to deflect. "Oh, I'm off duty right now, and it's really not appropriate for me to diagnose anything here at a BBQ. You should really see your doctor for that." I thought that was a reasonable and professional response. Brenda, however, did not. She scoffed and rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on, it'll just take a second. You're a nurse, you look at rashes all the time. It's probably nothing, but I just want to be sure. It's just a quick favor." She was already starting to pull up her sleeve, revealing a slightly red patch on her arm. I stood my ground. Brenda, I appreciate you thinking of me, but I really can't do that here. It's not professional and it's not appropriate. Please make an appointment with your doctor or visit a walk-in clinic if you're concerned about a rash. That's the proper way to handle it." She became visibly annoyed. "Yo, wow, really? You can't even help out a friend of a friend? You nurses are supposed to be caring and helpful. Are you gonna make me go to a doctor just for a little rash? It's probably nothing. You're making a big deal out of nothing." She was actually trying to guilt trip me for not wanting to give her free medical advice at a social gathering. I remained calm but firm. "So, Brenda, it's not about being unhelpful. It's about professional boundaries and providing proper medical care. I can't properly assess a rash in this setting. And even if it seems like nothing to you, it's always best to get it checked out by a doctor in a clinical setting. That's what doctors are for." She huffed again, clearly not happy with my answer. "Fine, whatever. I guess some nurses aren't as helpful as they pretend to be." She muttered this loud enough for everyone in the group to hear, trying to make me look bad. Luckily, the other people in the group seemed to understand my point of view, and some even chimed in, telling Brenda she was being unreasonable, and that I was right to set boundaries. Brenda eventually dropped it, but she spent the rest of the BBQ giving me dirty looks and pointedly ignoring me. It's just unbelievable how entitled some people can be, thinking they're entitled to free medical consultations anytime, anywhere, just because you happen to be a nurse. "Are you going to make me go to a doctor?" "Yes, Brenda, that's the point. Like and subscribe for more entitled craziness and have a rash-free day."